to it. We're going to start today with appeal anxiety. We all have it.
Yeah.
It's a disorder. I'm sure there's some sort of pill we can take for it.
I hope.
But I'm getting to my breaking point of appeal anxiety because we're in day 13 now. What the hell does expedited mean?
Right. I guess it's pretty relative now that you mentioned it.
I guess it means a sped up process.
Yeah.
But if this is sped up, I would hate to see the glacial version.
This just sucks. It all sucks.
It really does
It
suck.
sucks. The off-the-field stuff sucks. The waiting for the decision sucks. And what we know is if it's a season or more, it's still not over.
Right.
Because you know the Players Union and Watson are not going to stop if it's a season or more. The only way this ends, I think, when he makes this decision is if it's 12 games or less.
Yes. Anything less than a season, it's over.
Right, it's over.
It's
but
over.
if it's a season, we're still going to be waiting for something.
Yeah, and
The court
I
or
guess
whatever.
there could be one scenario where it's not over if the NFLPA decides to appeal a 12-game suspension. There's no indication now that they won't.
Right.
We know
But
that.
can they? Isn't this the
Well,
last
no,
appeal?
by appeal, take it to
You go
federal
to court. Yeah, okay,
That's what I'm
Right.
talking about.
I know that I know that what you're saying is in a way is interesting to the viewers and is relevant. But just this talk is just the look on me and G. Bush's faces right now. Where you guys are like, well, you could go 12 games. Well, it could though, but then they could appeal, and we're just like, and because we've been just talking about this and listening to it, and no one actually knows what's going on.
No.
And
We're all guessing.
At every turn we've been guessing, and this whole time it's just like it's almost. I think we're gonna look back at all this time we talked about this, and we're just gonna if you had to watch tape of it in like once we're through it.
That's how they're going
like
to
in a couple
torture
months.
prisoners of war.
Exactly. It's going to
They're
be used
gonna
in
put our
Guantanamo.
show on a loop and let it go.
It'll be at Guantanamo. They'll be like, where you got the weapons buried, and then they'll just play us just going. I mean, I'm going to go 6 games still. I feel like it could go 8 games.
You know what's going to happen?
Could go 8 or.
When it's finally all said and done, all 4 of us will be able to say, I called it.
Yep,
You're
exactly.
right. Because we've all talked about this so much. At one point, I was
Yeah.
at 4 games.
Right.
At one point, I was at a full season.
I
Yes.
will say this though. This is miserable. It does. It sucks. But I really am at like that. I'm a point of peace right now, where I've been in chilling for a while, and I'm waiting to see what happens. I'm cool with whatever it is. I've almost sort of like I won't say given up on the season by any means, but I've given up on the idea of this being a normal season, that everything's just going to be fine and great.
That ship sailed the
so
day
I'm
we
just
got
like
Deshaun
I'm
Watson.
interested to see what happens
know-
now.
you
And
know-
I'm not beating myself up over
This
it. Right?
reminds me a lot, right? And this is why you say political things, right? Remember how there was one point in time it just seemed like the president was getting impeached every day, like over something. It was like, and it just kept going on and on and on. And then it put people in 2 different factions. One that was just like, dude, you're just gonna get them like, or and the other group was just like, I can't digest no more.
Well, it's the
Like,
boy who cried wolf at some point. You're like, well, wait a minute. If everything is impeachable, is anything impeachable? And it's like this.
In fairness, a lot of things were impeachable. But that's neither here nor there.
Here's the thing on that. It's all in the eye of the beholder. That's what we've learned. We've learned that there were people willing to put on Vikings costumes and storm the Capitol they believe so strongly in the cause.
Yeah.
And we believe that others will say, well, really, if the president says that he's inciting violence, that's impeachable. But if Chuck Schumer threatens a Supreme Court justice who might have his life threatened for real,
Do you see
is
how-
that impeachable?
This definitely does sound like the comment section under a YouTube video, right?
Yeah,
go
which is
left.
why we typically tend to not go there.
Yep.
And you know what the crazy part about it is? The only people that really take the L's are the people who comment on it, right?
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with what you just said.
I mean, except when I do, because I blow everybody up. Boom. No, I'm kidding. I waste my time, too.
No, you know what?
You
Here's
take
a-
an L. You just
You're
I take
trying
an L. I take an
when
L.
you try to persuade someone into a political ideology, you might as well try to tell them that their favorite color isn't what they say it is. It's burned into the DNA at this point. It's baked into the cake. You're not going to... All of these tweets, all of this public discourse, which is so over the top.
Right.
When was the last time you ever saw an inflammatory political tweet and one of the comments was, you know what, you're right.
Right.
And I'm no longer...
we do it because we're frustrated more than
you know
changing
what?
minds.
But screaming your frustration in a public setting, does that make your frustration better?
That is
or
exactly what we're doing here now about Deshaun Watson.
That's exactly right.
That's where we are.
Yes.
That's where we are.
Nuggets is going to save us right now.
Yes.
Yes. Mike Polk, did you bring the golf?
I didn't. That was my attempt at the golf joke to clear the table right there.
I wondered where the book was.
I forgot it again.
Wait, leave it here.
I know.
Why would you take
no one's going to
because
steal the golf joke book.
I'll tell you why. I know no one wants the golf joke book, you guys. And in case you're just joining us for some reason, haven't seen the show before, where have you been? But I have a golf joke book down here from the 60s with terrible golf jokes. So whenever we start talking about politics or it gets too boring, I can take it out and tell a hilarious golf joke.
Diffuse the situation.
If I use it, but I keep taking it home because I want to go through it and highlight something.
So you're not leafing through it live.
So I'm not like leafing through it live, and some of them are a
idea.
paragraph long, and some of them are very sexist because it's from the 60s, you know. So I just want to get like 10
Just
good ones.
remember to bring it back to work.
But
with
I've never never one time when I got home, and I'm like, you know, this is a good time to go through that terrible golf joke book in case we need it. So I just haven't
stay
done it.
tuned because we're going to be talking abortion and religion in a few
Yep,
minutes.
get
That's in
ready.
the second hour of the show. Also, gun control too.
And let's get rid of
You got
affirmative
something else.
action already. Come on, it's been long enough.
We have talked about the
Yeah.
Watson situation at nauseum, but
Yeah.
today there is a little bit of a nugget that we haven't got to yet that I do want to hit on before we move to Brissett blossoming.
Sure.
into the quarterback.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. I heard Brissett's blossoming. I saw that somewhere.
Last week, Charles Robinson was on the show and said there was scorched earth between the NFL and the NFLPA.
It feels
But
that
after
way.
the apology on Friday, let's take the tag board, Steve. Charles tweeted out that there is a window for a possible settlement here, and that's, to his speculation, why Peter C. Harvey's taking so long to announce a decision on this
But I do
appeal.
think that the key, I saw that the key thing that you pointed out was speculation.
So do
like,
you guys think there is any
I don't
chance
see
of a
him
settlement
quoting
here?
a source inside the league who said,
No.
or a source inside the NFLPA who believes.
It does. No, you're right. But it does make sense just based on a timeline thing. I mean,
Yeah.
like, why wouldn't they? Like we've been saying, he has all the evidence. It's not, you think he's just like walking around a room looking at that same pile of evidence going, and looking at it different and going, it's
not changing.
It's over.
Listen,
You know, so I
it's-
think he's hoping they do
It's
that.
enough. Make the freaking decision and move on.
Or come to a
It's enough.
settlement. I think that would be ideal for everybody.
Did the NFL not hear Deshaun Watson's incredibly moving, heartfelt apology to all
You
of
weren't
those
here yesterday.
women?
What did you
right.
make of that?
What did I make of it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I thought that was. I think no apology would have been way better than that apology.
Yeah, I agree
I
with
thought that was pretty brutal. I thought it was stupid. If you're gonna do it, if you're gonna just stay on the same thing as I can't speak about it until this is all settled and done. I think.
No, he blew that
I think it
narrative
looked
up.
desperate. I think it
that's what I
looked, and
thought.
I think it probably even, and it looked very obvious and blatant why he was doing it.
And rehearsed.
And I think it made him look worse than he looked before the apology. I think he should have stayed on cue and said, and God bless Aditi for getting it done. That's what she does. That's great. And she did great. And that was
Yeah.
great journalism. I mean, that's exactly, she handled it well. But no, I think that was, I don't know who's advising him. I don't think, was that his
I
lawyer?
said the same thing. I said I wanted to know: is this Watson's camp? Is this
think it's the Browns. I think it's
camp?
the Browns.
If it's the Browns camp,
It's
I'm
embarrassing.
mortified.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah,
because
it
they
was a
should
bad
know
call.
better.
It was
They're
so
a professional
bad.
sports organization. They should have on staff paid professionals that deal with nothing but scandal.
Yes.
And they have to understand how you get out in front of it, how you diffuse it. And to me, they lit the fuse.
Yeah.
Because remember, all along he had been saying, I never have ever disrespected
Right.
a woman. Now he's done a full 180. I apologize to all
Not
the
even
women
a
that
full
I brought into
180.
this
If it were a
situation.
full 180, I think it would be more acceptable than he did like 145, where he's like, if some people or entities were troubled by anything that happened, that's been horrible
Well,
for me.
any
And I'm
expert
like,
on
what are you
apologies
doing?
Yeah.
will tell you that if you use in your apology, if
Right.
you're done.
It's like when
because
you-
now you're just saying, from my perspective, things are cool.
Right.
But if you were offended,
Right.
I'm sorry. That's the worst
It's like the
apology you
people
can
who,
give.
when somebody says something racist, comes out and says, "Well, I wasn't trying to be racist, but if you were offended by what I said,
Yeah,
sure.
it's
Right.
which is meaner than just saying.
right.
But if he really would have come out and done a heartfelt
It's-
one, and he meant
that's
it.
basically like saying you're being ridiculous, but I'm going to apologize because I have to."
Yes,
Right.
Yes,
The other
because
thing
That's how it
that
came off.
surprised
Now we
me-
don't. Now I will say one thing, and it is possible to defend Deshaun Watson, that the four of us are used to talking on the radio and talking on TV. This is what we do for a living.
Sure.
He's a professional football player. He doesn't talk for a living. Okay?
Part of his job includes
Part of his
talking for a
job, but
living,
that's not his,
but it's not
his main job.
No.
And it might have been a situation where, as time goes by, maybe he came to some sort of realization that, you know what, I did go too far.
Then explain
And
that.
I'm uncomfortable
Then explain that.
apologizing and I did it a poor job with it.
I agree with you.
I think that's
You think
possible.
he did it on the fly without any counsel?
Oh,
from
I
the-
don't-
No,
I
I
don't
don't.
think that.
But I think he
Well,
was
then
so
somebody
awkward about
there
it.
should have
They
said,
screwed up.
Yes.
Here
That's-
are the words you have to get in there if you really want this
Right.
to be effective.
And by the way, you role play that interview 20 times.
They should have.
Yes.
You don't do it with Aditi.
Yep.
Somebody's playing Aditi's
Right.
part,
Yeah.
and they ask the
got-
question, and he goes over and they videotape it. Mm-hmm. And they watch the tape back, and they
Right.
say, what
Yep.
was strong, what was weak. Keep the strong, lose the weak. Let's add this phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need, and I know it seems so disingenuous, but folks, let's face it, that's what it is.
That's yeah.
That's what it is.
I think they came to the conclusion that we're going to give you an apology. Deshaun Watson isn't really a politician. He's not a speaker. And they've already baked into the cake that guess what? For some people that are in the middle, see, they're not going for the fringe people. They're not going to all the way to the right.
no, those people are made up. They've made up their
All
mind.
the way
It's
to the
just like
left.
politics.
So-
Most people are in
They're
their
not gonna
camp.
change
So
their
what,
mind.
so what he wants to do is we just want these little few in the middle, the little 20% that say, I'm disappointed, man. I like him kind of, but he's not showing no remorse. So they say, okay, let's give him a statement. You give him the 20%. Now all of a sudden, he looks a little better to the people that are able or
Does he, though?
open his mind.
Have you heard anybody say that they thought that was an effective apology, and all of a sudden I think maybe I'm on side with this guy? Because I think they blew it. If that's what they were trying to
They
do.
had the opportunity to do what G. Bush said.
You're
I just
absolutely
think
right.
they swung and missed.
Well, here's the thing. Most, like we say, most of those individuals aren't on social media.
True.
You either super left or super right.
Yeah.
To most people in the middle,
They just
all
heard he apologized.
They heard it apologize.
They didn't even see
They
the
not
apology.
drilling down into
That's
it,
true.
and all they
And
want to know
yeah.
is when are you gonna play?
And it did check a box because I do believe Charles is onto something. The fact that Sue L. Robinson said that Deshaun has shown no remorse.
Right.
I think this, let's check that box.
Right.
Right.
And by the way,
And
the NFL is
he
checking
fell on the
boxes
sword.
too. They got the Dolphins for.
Yes,
it's like,
they
yo,
are.
you got that. We're gonna have to go ahead and penalize you for the tampering.
Yeah.
Then they went and settled the racial norming, right?
Yes.
That settlement came down. They
Yeah.
finished
Right.
that.
By the
cleaned
way,
that up.
no coincidence that these things are happening.
Absolutely
They
not.
And
know
all
both
of
of
them,
them.
all of those
all of
boxes,
them.
and all of those boxes you're checking are coming up short in actual reality as far as what they should be.
Right.
True.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but
That's
it's
the other
public
thing.
perception.
Yes.
Right.
No, we addressed the Dolphins. We addressed the CTE racial bias.
Yeah. Right.
We addressed this. We
I
addressed
said I was
that.
sorry.
Everything's
Like,
taken
But,
care of.
but
Yeah.
I still think it behooves everybody. I think your analogy, you were the first one I heard use this phrase, and I think it's perfect. Both parties had their hands on the nuclear button.
Yep.
And they were both ready to fire. And what usually happens in these situations, for the sake of humanity, in the real world, things cool down, diplomacy takes place, you take your finger off the button, and you come to some settlement. And I think that we were at a point where they were staring at each other with their fingers on the buttons. And I think the NFL realized the NFLPA can burn this whole thing down.
Right.
And I also think that the NFLPA realized our hands and our fate kind of rests with Roger Goodell. Let's come together.
They should.
Fix this amongst
They
ourselves.
could even. I think it's possible that they settle and yet they make it seem. What's the guy who's doing the
Peter
appeal?
C. Harvey.
Peter C.
That
Harvey.
Peter C. Harvey. They make it seem like it was his decision.
We got a picture of that dream boat? Let's throw him up there if you get a
Because,
chance.
because
His mustache is
the one
classic.
thing
It is.
I never defend the NFL, but after the Judge Robinson ruling,
There it
a
is.
lot of people were crushing the NFL for the penalty being too light, and I'm like, you can't crush the NFL. They're appealing. Why are you crushing the NFL right now? That's not fair. If you're in the camp of that penalty was too light. So the NFL, if nothing else, wants to come off as they're being tough as possible, even if they don't really care about how long the suspension
No,
is.
you're right. That's the optics.
Yeah.
They want to be able to appease the crowd that has been saying
Right.
he should never play again, ever.
Right.
He should be put in jail. They want to tell that crowd, look, we had a hammer and we used it as much as we could.
Right.
And don't you guys think that the NFL is better than every other sport? There's nothing that can literally stop them. They're printing money.
Nothing. And that's why I don't know why
Printing.
they're so worried about
And
the
so,
PR.
and, so, and so when both sides are sitting there, one side over here, one side over here, don't you think one of the lawyers got together and said, listen, guys, we all make a boatload of money.
Yeah.
The only thing that can stop us is us starting to infight and people start having that laundry thrown out here. Now, here's what we need to do. That's the reason I was on DeMaurice Smith, but don't you think that somebody in the NFL talked to DeMaurice Smith and said, listen,
You would think, G,
think.
but sometimes
Yeah.
with egos that big, that gets in the way, but you'd think it would.
McNuggets.
Guys, we got some breaking news we got to get to, which leads us right into our next topic.